In today's eye-opening video, we are diving deep into a shocking revelation that has been kept under wraps.
Migrants illegally crossing the southern border. Officials telling NBC News most migrants are now being released into the U.S.
The recent crisis involving illegal immigration in Texas has sparked a controversial and unprecedented response from both state and federal governments, leaving many Americans in the dark. What we have uncovered will leave you astounded, questioning everything you thought you knew about the Lone Star State's battle at the border. This is not just news, it is a wake-up call to the nation. Stay with us as we expose the hidden truths and the untold stories that could change the way you see Texas forever. Much has been said about illegal crossing at the Texas borders. It is so prevalent that illegal immigrants can just walk on foot into the country through multiple points of entry. Picture this: the sun beats down mercilessly on the rugged terrain along the Rio Grande in southern Texas. Scrubby desert vegetation dots the landscape of dusty hills, dry creek beds, and rocky outcroppings. But despite the harsh conditions, this remote stretch of border is bustling with activity, much of it illegal. In places like El Paso, Laredo, McAllen, and Brownsville, thousands of undocumented immigrants pour across the border from Mexico on foot each year, taking their first steps into the United States. The footpaths they travel are as varied as the landscape itself. Some trek through the open desert, following rough trails or simply navigating by the stars. They carry jugs of water to stave off dehydration in the baking heat. Others wade across shallow stretches of the Rio Grande and quickly vanish into the dense brush along the riverbanks. Still, others make their way through the storm drains and culverts that run beneath the border fences in urban areas like Nogales. Wherever they cross, the immigrants face a daunting and dangerous journey. Smugglers known as coyotes often serve as their guides, charging thousands of dollars to lead them across the border and transport them to drop-off points far into the interior of the country. The coyotes are notoriously unreliable and often abandon their human cargo at the first sign of trouble from the Border Patrol. Many immigrants carry little more than some food, water, and the clothes on their backs. No one knows exactly how many immigrants cross the border illegally on foot each year. However, the Border Patrol reported apprehending over 98,000 people in the Rio Grande Valley sector alone in fiscal year 2022. But that is just the ones who were caught. By some estimates, hundreds of thousands enter undetected annually across the entire U.S.-Mexico border. Once across, the immigrants scatter to the wind. Many of the crossings occur on ranch land or other private property along the border. Ranchers often find groups of disheveled immigrants huddled in their barns or stumbling through their fields in the early morning light, having marched all night to evade detection. Whit Jones, a rancher in Hebronville, Texas, was unfortunate enough to find the bodies of migrants on his property, tragically highlighting the dangerous journey many migrants face when attempting to cross into the United States. Jones has found approximately 2 to 3 bodies yearly, while a neighbor has encountered close to 10 annually for the past decade. The majority of those found have been adult males, which Jones attributes to changes in asylum policies. Women and children are often able to claim asylum and avoid the perilous trek that leads through his property. The situation has created a constant sense of fear among local residents and has brought attention to the broader issues of border security and immigration policy. Jones has expressed a desire for legislative action to address the crisis, advocating for laws that would penalize smugglers more severely and provide greater protection for migrants. He hopes such laws would strengthen penalties for trespassing and empower local law enforcement to better manage the situation. George Allen Kelly is a 75-year-old rancher facing charges of second-degree murder and aggravated assault following the fatal shooting of Gabriel Cuen Buitamea, a 48-year-old immigrant from Nogales, Mexico. The incident occurred on January 30, 2023, when Cuen Buitamea was among a group of migrants crossing the border and wandered onto Kelly's 170-acre cattle ranch. According to authorities, Kelly fired his AK-47 from about 100 yards away, fatally striking Quen Buitamea. The other migrants were reportedly unarmed and fled back to the Mexican side of the border following the shooting. Kelly's defense attorney, Brenna Larkin, has argued that Kelly only fired warning shots in the air because he feared for his safety and the security of his wife and property. The case has garnered significant attention and ignited controversy amidst the broader national debate on border security and asylum rights, especially in the context of the 2024 presidential election. Early interviews with detectives revealed that Kelly's wife, Wanda Kelly, had seen people on their property carrying guns and backpacks. However, authorities allege that only Kelly had a gun at the time of the incident. Kelly rejected a plea deal from prosecutors that would have reduced the charges to a single count of negligent homicide, with an 8-year prison sentence attached. If convicted of the original charges, Kelly could face up to 24.5 years in prison. The trial has undergone several developments, including a vacated trial date and the scheduling of oral arguments for an appeal. Ranchers in Jim Hogg County, Texas, have faced the formidable challenge of dealing with armed smugglers on their land with remarkable resilience and ingenuity. Situated about 70 miles north of the U.S.-Mexico border, this area has long been a corridor for those attempting to evade Border Patrol highway checkpoints and law enforcement. The ranchers have tried to respond to this threat. They have bolstered security measures, increased vigilance, and fostered a strong sense of community to protect their land and livelihoods. Many have been forced to install advanced surveillance systems, including motion sensors and night vision cameras, to monitor their property around the clock. These high-tech eyes in the sky serve as a deterrent and an early warning system to alert ranchers of any unauthorized activity. In addition to technological upgrades, ranchers have also taken to patrolling their land more frequently, often on horseback, just as their forebears did. This not only allows them to cover large swathes of terrain, but also to respond swiftly to any signs of trespassing. The presence of ranchers on patrol sends a clear message to smugglers. Their illegal activities will not be tolerated. Moreover, the ranchers have worked closely with local law enforcement to report incidents and share intelligence. This collaboration has been crucial in apprehending smugglers and preventing illegal crossings. By pooling resources and information, they've created a formidable barrier against the flow of contraband through their land. The ranchers have organized neighborhood watches and communication networks to keep each other informed. They have held meetings to discuss strategies and share best practices, fostering a united front against the common threat. Their camaraderie and collective action have been instrumental in safeguarding their properties. It is interesting, though, that despite the risks, the ranchers of Jim Hogg County have not let fear dictate their lives. They continue to work their land, raise their cattle, and contribute to the local economy. Some immigrants seek out Border Patrol agents and request asylum, but most quickly continue their journeys, trying to get as far from the border as possible. They make their way to nearby towns and cities where they are picked up by smugglers in cars or vans for transport to Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and beyond. Some head to the agricultural fields of Florida and California, where undocumented workers form the backbone of the labor force harvesting crops. Others move to big cities like New York, Chicago, Atlanta, and Los Angeles, building new lives in immigrant communities there. The primary goal for most is to find work and send money back home to families in Mexico, Central America, and South America. The majority claim they are simply seeking a better life and are willing to do difficult, dangerous jobs that most Americans won't: washing dishes, cleaning offices, toiling on construction sites. While stereotyped as criminals or freeloaders, some studies show undocumented immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than native-born citizens and contribute billions in taxes to the economy each year. Still, there is no question that illegal immigration has strained border communities in Texas. Schools, hospitals, and social services struggle to meet the needs of the growing population. And the porous border is a smuggling corridor not just for people, but also for drugs, weapons, and other contraband. The opioid epidemic that has ravaged much of the U.S. is fueled in part by heroin and fentanyl flowing across the border in Texas. Addressing the complex issue is a constant challenge for policymakers. Stepped-up enforcement and border barriers have done little to stem the tide over the decades. The number of undocumented immigrants living in the U.S. has more than tripled since 1990 to over 12 million today. Efforts to overhaul the nation's immigration laws to allow more legal entry have repeatedly faltered in Congress. Meanwhile, the foot trails along the Rio Grande remain well-trodden. As darkness falls each night, new groups of immigrants gather on the Mexican side, preparing to take their first steps into an uncertain future in the U.S. Perhaps tomorrow they will be caught and deported back home. Or perhaps they will become one of the countless undocumented workers toiling in the shadows of the American economy. For now, they simply hoist their backpacks and water jugs, scan the brush for lurking Border Patrol agents, and set off into the night. Accusations that the Biden administration and Democrats are deliberately allowing masses of undocumented immigrants to enter the U.S. illegally through the southern border in order to expand the Democratic voter base in the future have exploded in popularity recently, promoted by influential figures like Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, and numerous Republican politicians. The theory has gained significant traction, particularly among conservatives. For example, tech billionaire and Twitter owner Elon Musk has been one of the most prominent voices pushing this claim to his over 130 million Twitter followers. In a series of viral tweets, Musk has asserted that the left is making a huge mistake by trying to buy elections via illegal immigration. Won't work. He speculated that Democrats' supposed motive is to import voters, and that if undocumented immigrants are granted a pathway to citizenship, it is increasingly clear that they will vote Republican. Musk is far from alone in promoting this accusation. Fox News host Tucker Carlson, the most watched cable news personality in the U.S., has repeatedly claimed that Democrats are using immigration to replace the American electorate and cement permanent political power. What happens when you import millions of new voters who break federal law to get here? Well, let's see. They probably won't be voting Republican. That's the whole point, Carlson stated recently. A long list of Republican members of Congress have echoed these assertions. Representative Brian Babin from Texas claimed that Democrats' immigration policies are an attempt to stack the electorate, and that Democrats want to enfranchise illegals and have them vote. They know they're going to be voting their way. Senator Ted Cruz, also from Texas, has argued the Democrats are counting on illegal aliens voting, and they want to keep the border open to get as many illegal aliens in as possible so they can vote. Accusations of Democrats allowing undocumented immigration for electoral gain have been turbocharged recently by the record-breaking migrant encounters at the southern border. U.S. authorities had over 2.3 million encounters with migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border in fiscal year 2022, shattering the previous record. This has fueled claims by conservative commentators and lawmakers that Biden has instituted open borders. Republican governors have escalated the issue by busing and flying migrants from the border to Democratic-run cities like New York, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a potential 2024 presidential candidate, flew a group of migrants to the liberal enclave of Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, a move he said was intended to highlight Democrats' hypocrisy on immigration. More on that later. The border crisis and move by Republican governors have brought accusations of Democrats' supposed electoral motives to the forefront of political debate. For example, Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake said busing migrants to Democratic cities will force liberal leaders to face the consequences of their border policies, which she claimed are an assault on the American voter. While these claims of Democrats facilitating illegal immigration to gain votes remain unsubstantiated, polling shows a significant number of Americans believe them. A recent Rasmussen survey found that 51% of likely voters believe it is at least somewhat likely that Democrats are deliberately encouraging illegal immigration because migrants will eventually vote Democratic. Social media has played a key role in the spread of these assertions. Viral Facebook posts have alleged that Biden is intentionally flooding our nation with illegal immigrants to create new Democratic voters. On Twitter, hashtags like a Biden border crisis and open borders have trended alongside claims that Democrats have ulterior political motives for allowing undocumented immigration. However, in a bold and controversial move, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has taken decisive action to address the issue of illegal immigration in his state by transporting a group of undocumented immigrants to New York City. This unprecedented step has sparked a heated debate across the nation, with supporters applauding the governor's courage and critics denouncing the action as a political stunt. Governor Abbott, fed up with what he perceives as the federal government's lack of action on border security, decided to take matters into his own hands. He argued that Texas has been bearing the brunt of the influx of illegal immigrants, straining the state's resources and posing a threat to public safety. By sending these individuals to New York, a city known for its sanctuary policies, Abbott aimed to highlight the challenges faced by border states and force the issue onto the national stage. The operation was carried out with military precision. A group of undocumented immigrants, mostly from Central America, were carefully selected and voluntarily agreed to be transported to New York. The Texas government provided them with food, water, and basic necessities for the journey, ensuring their well-being throughout the process. Abbott's team worked closely with law enforcement agencies to ensure a smooth and safe transfer, demonstrating the state's commitment to handling the situation responsibly. As news of the transportation spread, reactions poured in from all sides of the political spectrum. Supporters of Abbott's decision praised him for his bold leadership and willingness to take action where the federal government had failed. They argued that the move was a necessary wake-up call for the nation, highlighting the urgent need for comprehensive immigration reform and stronger border security measures. Many Texans expressed their gratitude to the governor for standing up for their interests and taking a proactive approach to address the challenges posed by illegal immigration. On the other hand, critics of the move were quick to condemn Governor Abbott's actions as a cruel and inhumane political stunt. They accused him of using vulnerable immigrants as pawns in a larger political game, disregarding their dignity and well-being in the process. Some argued that the transportation of these individuals to New York was a violation of their rights and a misuse of state resources. They called for an investigation into the legality of the operation and demanded accountability from the governor and his administration. Despite the backlash, Governor Abbott remained steadfast in his conviction that the transportation of illegal immigrants to New York was a necessary and justified action. He pointed to the overwhelming burden placed on Texas's border communities, who have been grappling with the consequences of unchecked illegal immigration for years. Abbott argued that by bringing the issue to the doorstep of a major metropolitan area like New York, he was forcing the nation to confront the reality of the situation and sparking a much-needed conversation about the need for reform. The arrival of the undocumented immigrants in New York City sparked a flurry of activity and controversy. Local authorities scrambled to provide assistance and resources to the newly arrived individuals, while activists and community organizations mobilized to offer support and advocate for their rights. The media descended upon the city, eager to document the unfolding events and capture the reactions of New Yorkers to the unexpected influx of immigrants. As the dust settled, the long-term impact of Governor Abbott's decision remained to be seen. Some have speculated that the move could serve as a catalyst for meaningful immigration reform, forcing lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to come together and address the issue head-on. Others feared that it would only deepen the divide between border states and the rest of the country, further polarizing an already contentious debate. In another move, the state of Texas has embarked on a unique and ambitious project to enhance border security along the Rio Grande by installing what has been dubbed as floating border walls. These are not your typical barriers. They are a series of large, bright orange buoys that have been strategically placed along the river's banks. The buoys are connected with webbing and anchored firmly to the riverbed, creating a formidable floating barrier designed to deter migrants from crossing into the United States from Mexico. This step is part of Greg Abbott's broader border security program, known as Operation Lone Star. The floating barriers span approximately 305 meters or 1,000 feet of the river in the Eagle Pass area, a region that has seen a significant number of migrant detentions this fiscal year. The innovative design of these barriers is not just about deterrence, it also serves as a visual statement of the state's commitment to securing its borders. Meanwhile, the floating border walls have sparked a lively debate among various stakeholders. While state officials argue that the barriers are an effective tool for border security, immigrant advocates have raised concerns about their efficacy and potential risks to migrants. The barriers may alter the flow of the river, potentially making crossings more dangerous. There's also the possibility of debris, such as tree branches, getting entangled in the netting or under the buoys, creating additional hazards. In addition to the floating walls, Texas has also implemented the use of razor wire along the border. This involves laying miles of concertina wire along the banks of the Rio Grande, adding another layer of difficulty for those attempting to cross. The razor wire is not only placed above the water, but also submerged beneath the surface, posing a significant risk to anyone who might come into contact with it. The razor wire has been met with its own set of controversies. The federal government has clashed with Texas over the installation of this wire, with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that border security agents have the authority to remove it if it interferes with their duties. Despite this, Governor Abbott has remained steadfast in his approach, arguing that the state has the right to enforce border security and immigration matters. Using the combination of floating border walls and razor wire is a bold and assertive stance by Texas on border control. It passes a clear message that the state is willing to employ unconventional methods to address the challenges of illegal immigration. While the effectiveness of these measures is still a topic of discussion, there's no denying the ingenuity and determination behind their implementation. As the debate continues, it is important to consider the broader implications of such security measures. They not only impact the lives of migrants, but also reflect the ongoing struggle to find a balance between national security and humanitarian concerns. The fact is that Texas's approach may set a precedent for other states and countries dealing with similar issues, making it a critical point of reference in the global discourse on border management and migration policy. Another very controversial measure has been the enactment of a Texas law signed by Governor Greg Abbott, which grants state law enforcement officers the authority to arrest individuals suspected of entering the country illegally. The law, known as Senate Bill 4 or SB 4, authorizes police to detain people they suspect have crossed the Rio Grande between ports of entry. It also empowers local judges to order these individuals to leave the country. The bill has been met with considerable opposition from immigrant rights organizations, Democrats, and former immigration judges, who argue that it is unconstitutional because immigration enforcement falls under federal jurisdiction. Federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, have historically ruled that immigration laws can only be enforced by the federal government. Proponents of SB 4, however, see it as a necessary response to what they perceive as inadequate federal action on immigration. Governor Abbott has been vocal about his stance, stating that the Biden administration's policies have left Texas to fend for itself against drug cartels and illegal immigration. The law is part of a broader effort by Texas to take immigration matters into its own hands. The law has sparked legal challenges and a complex judicial response. A U.S. district judge initially granted a preliminary injunction, pausing the law's enforcement, citing concerns over its constitutionality. However, a federal appeals court later ruled that the law could stand, overturning the lower court's ruling. The Justice Department has since asked the Supreme Court to block the law, highlighting the ongoing legal battle over state versus federal authority in immigration enforcement. Critics of SB 4 argue that it could lead to racial profiling and undermine trust between immigrant communities and law enforcement. They also contend that it diverts resources from local law enforcement's primary responsibilities. Furthermore, opponents fear that the law's implementation could result in the separation of families and the unjust treatment of individuals seeking asylum or better opportunities in the United States. Supporters, on the other hand, believe that the law is a crucial tool for maintaining the rule of law and ensuring the safety of Texas residents. They argue that the law deters illegal immigration and helps combat human trafficking and drug smuggling.